All right, guys, welcome to today's Local Yokels Podcast. I'm Neil Colley, your host. Thanks for joining us. Right away, I want to get into thanking the sponsors. We got RoofWorks Roofing Company. You can always reach them at roofworksmidsouth.com, 662-303-0345. We appreciate their sponsorship as always. Feed My Lambs, new logo. Something just kind of pronounced more about our food weekend security backpack program we do. We'll be talking about that as we go on. We're building a new truck to raffle off for the program that's going to be given away in October. You should start seeing it. Derek's probably going to post a picture about right now and tell you it's going to be built by Outlaw Intentions. It's going to be painted by Ronnie's Hot Rods in Senatobia, Mississippi. Go check out those guys. Give them all the love and support you can. And always remember, the Feed My Lambs program, primarily you can reach them at minormemorial.org/lambs, or you can reach them at 662-781-1333 if you want to purchase a donation of a ticket, if you want to sponsor a child or just get involved from a standpoint of volunteer or donate some food. They'll give you all those ideas on there. But anyway, thank you for checking that out. Without further ado, my guest today is going to be Miss Betsy Bailey. Miss Betsy Bailey.
Yes.
And I want to say this right. She is a local person who has been through drug recovery and a successful story on top of that.
Yes.
So welcome today, Miss Betsy.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Let's first of all, let's talk about how we got in touch with each other. You see my show
I sure did.
on Facebook, which I always tell people, by the way, if you watch it, please give me a like and a follow. That'd be nice.
Yes.
Yeah. So, because we get a lot of views, but it doesn't reflect in the follows category. I'd like to get more followers and stuff and everything. So thank y'all for that if you are on there. But you were watching one of my shows. I'm not even sure which one you were actually watching. Was it Miss Ann's?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Miss Ann Lunsford with Precious and Pink. Mm-hmm. You actually went through that program.
Absolutely.
And you reached out to me and said, hey, I went through that program. It was where I wrote my book. And so I was curious and I reached out to you, and here we are.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And then we find out we know a lot of the same people.
Man, yeah, it turns out, listen, before we get too far into this, you lived you were in the neighborhood.
3 houses down from your mom.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you were married to
Tracy Whitehurst.
Tracy Whitehurst. Mm-hmm. At the time, he was a deputy sheriff. Mm-hmm. And my mom was a Mary Kay salesman, Miss Fancy Nancy Colley, as everybody knows
right.
her. And you were telling me, man, I was in her house, in her store, as you call it. And I'm thinking, man, I'm just having this flashback in my mind of that crazy story. But it's a small world.
Absolutely.
It really is. And so we had just celebrated her life.
Yes.
I think a couple of days before you had reached out to me, and I thought, man, this is so meant to be. So,
yes.
So anyway, welcome today, and we want to talk about, obviously, watching that episode with Miss Ann Lunsford, Precious and Pink. Your story, basically, is where you found sobriety.
Yes.
And you've kept it. You wrote a book.
Yes.
And we will let you just talk about how you got there through your years of trials and tribulations of the drug world and going from a contributing member of society to falling off that path, and how many years that you were there, in the drug, I guess.
The drug world.
Yeah, I mean, it really would be that, right? At the end of the day. So go ahead and start with that for us.
Well, I'm from here, born and raised.
Yeah.
I lived in Eudora, Mississippi, growing up. Went to Hernando High School. Parents were amazing, involved in church. I have a younger sister. Growing up, I did amazing. I was in sports in school, basketball, volleyball. I'm tall, so
yeah,
my kids are even taller. Like my daughter is 6'4",
wow,
and she's 17.
Wow,
so my son's like 6'8", 6'9". He just turned 22.
Amazing. Yeah.
So, but sports kept me out of trouble, and I was raised with morals, and my parents taught me respect. And, I just want the message out there that it doesn't matter where you come from, that drugs can get you. They can take you down, but recovery's possible.
Addiction.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I even grown up after I got out of high school, I worked for Miss Jeanette Martin at the courthouse,
right,
in the circuit clerk's office. That's where I met my first husband, Tracy Whitehurst. He was a sheriff's deputy.
Irvin, as you referred to him. Actually, I knew him as Tracy, but I think he goes by Irvin Whitehurst.
Irvin Whitehurst, LLC. That's
LLC.
his business.
Yeah. By the way, we'll give him a little shout out because
Absolutely.
he does sell vehicles. Now, where's he at these days? He's down in like Como or somewhere.
He's in Luxahoma.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and that's what he does now, kind of retired, but he sells vehicles. So look him up.
He's a Toyota man, if you will.
Absolutely.
I know that,
lives by him,
Anyway, shout out to you, Tracy. I hadn't seen you in a while, man, but I hope you're doing well. I actually had a little chat with him the other day on Facebook just about something he had posted, So,
yes.
But anyway, that was another small world. I didn't realize you were married to him, so small world. But carry on.
But yeah, so, and then also I worked for Interstate Bail Bonds. I was a bail bondsman for 3 years in DeSoto County. And, I just kind of dabbled in stuff. And then when I was 17, my mom and dad got a divorce. And it kind of tore my world apart. It flipped me upside down. It was very chaotic during that time, but I was a daddy's girl growing up. I mean, hunting, fishing, and working on cars. I was a tomboy, Right. He wanted boys and didn't have boys, so I was his boy.
So he had a 6 foot tall tomboy.
Yes, and he was so proud. Like, he would always, my daughter can do it better,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, that's right.
But, when 5 years after they divorced, he remarried. And me and her didn't really get along. So it came down to, she said, you're going to choose her or me. And I'm like, I'm his daughter. You're going to go. And that's not how it played out.
Wow.
So I haven't seen or talked to my dad in 25 years. But when he was so easily able to just walk away, it created a monster within me. I lost my way. Turned to the streets and that fast life and fell off. Meth was my drug of choice, and it was my comfort after he walked away. I have been through a lot. I have been in very many abusive relationships. I have lived that fast life. And, we spoke about my book earlier. It goes more into detail.
Sure. Real quickly, let me see that. I'm going to show it to the camera. It is from Junkie to Jesus. I believe you can get it on Amazon. She said she wasn't here to promote the book, but I told her to bring it just because
Absolutely.
It's a telltale story of, I don't know if you can see that real good. I'm trying to make sure the glare is off. But From Junkie to Jesus, The Prodigal Daughter's Journey.
Yes.
And it's by Betsy Bailey Swindle, which you actually go by on occasion, depending
Swindle
on
is my legal married name. Me and my youngest daughter's dad are not together anymore.
Yeah.
And after the divorce, I kept Swindle just because my daughter's name is Swindle.
Yeah, a lot of people do that. Yeah.
But also the Swindle, like in my past, the past bad part of my life, everybody knew me as Betsy Swindle. So my book, I wanted to be able to reach those people still.
Yeah.
And I wanted them to know when they look at the author, well, maybe that is Betsy Swindle. So, but long story short, I have been to prison 6 times.
6 times.
6 times.
Actual prison, not jail.
Prison, not jail.
Yeah, right. Jail
prison.
could be like 57, maybe.
Jail. Every time I went to jail, I went to prison.
Oh, did you?
I've never been bonded out.
Oh,
my
goodness.
mama used to tell me, you did it.
Oh, wow.
You're staying.
Wow.
Do not ask me to bond you out. She said, know this. Tonight I'm going to sleep good.
Yeah, it's true, man. That's a common story, by the way. Stacy Dodd and I were talking about that sometimes the best rest is when the kids are incarcerated.
Yeah.
The parent can actually relax and go, look, I know that's not the best place, but I know he's not going to have a car wreck or she's not going to get killed because she's in a drug deal. There's a lot of things that go behind your mind. You're like, I know at least there. They're in a safe place tonight.
Yep.
So I can
and that's
sleep.
what she would say. I don't have to worry about getting that phone call that you're dead in a ditch.
Oh, wow, man.
And I was
so
like,
she was tough love.
She was tough love.
Yeah.
And that's what I needed.
But it took a long time. So now just pause for a second. Let's talk about you're 23 years old roughly when you started in your drug path, right?
Yep.
So probably had experimented a little drinking, a little pot smoking here and there in high school and this, that, and the other maybe,
I've done it all.
Well, I think it's not uncommon for most high school kids to dabble with things like that. But what your, I guess, trigger point was when you lost your dad's favor.
Yes.
And then that just creates the next, how many years you would say of addiction?
I was in addiction for 25 years.
Right. So, and then from that, like you said, the now we haven't even covered, because you were telling me some stuff in our private conversation that we had leading up to this, our pre-interview for the show on the phone. You were telling me about, man, I was in Missouri. There's a whole bunch of stuff here that like we're not probably going to dive into today. It's just too much. Yes. But the book will tell it all, and we can probably do another show sometime if you want. We'll get into more details about things that happened to you while you were incarcerated.
Okay, absolutely.
That was even crazy. But obviously today we want to talk about how this typical loving, caring upbringing and not a complaint in the world. Perfect family. Sports, high school is great. Everything's good. Life is going good. And then at 23, it just comes off the rails at some point. And I know we have trigger points. We blame things. I mean, there could have been something else there for you that'll allow that to take place at that time on top of that. But the trigger point was your father not, having your favor anymore, so to speak. He picked someone over you. And then not just like, hey, you're going to have to deal with this. Come over, we still love you. It wasn't none of that. It was like, hey, you're absolutely not welcome here. Don't come back. This is my new lady. You don't want to be a part of it. I don't want to be a part of you. Blah, and gone. And you still don't talk to him to this day?
Still don't.
Wow.
Like, my thing was, why?
Yeah, exactly.
I never got the why.
Closure.
Never had closure. Did I do something wrong? It was my thing. And then, I used that for an excuse for so long. Well, my daddy don't love me. I'm going to go get high. And after so long, it becomes an excuse.
Sure.
I then got to the point in my addiction. I did it because I thought I needed it. I wanted it. And I liked the way it made me feel.
Sure.
It numbed me out, and it took away all my trauma, all my problems. But what everybody needs to know is that they don't go away. That just stuffs them down in there, and that addiction sits on top.
It's just masking the pain.
When you get clean, all that comes up.
Sure.
And I had to, go through that and feel the emotions and do everything, and I did. Recovery to me is a choice. And it's followed by a process.
Sure.
You have to put in the work, and
you got to be ready.
Yeah,
too. That's
have to be
another
ready.
thing that I've talked about with the multiple people I've had on here, from Miss Ann to Miss Stacy, or Mr. Stacy Dodd, to Jake and Sarah Linton that does the Tried and True Recovery Houses. They're amazing too, but it's always, they got to be ready.
Yes.
Like, the person has to be ready. It can't be forced. It can't be an intervention. Those just don't work. I mean, it's got to be the person's got to be sick of it. They got to be ready. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's kind of where you got to, I guess.
I got to that point. And when I tell you, like, I've been in very, very abusive relationships. I was actually held hostage once in Branson, Missouri by an Irish mob gang member and beat, raped, and tortured for a week in a hotel. I have been in relationships that
was
ended.
Was that due to a drug interaction going bad, or?
We were actually, when I met him, we weren't using, and then some stuff happened in between us, and he begged me to come see him at a hotel, and I broke in and gave in and went and saw him, and there was drugs there. So he was just kind of out of his mind, but it was the worst thing I've ever been through, and I will not even speak on the things that I had to endure during that time, and I'm not going to tell you how I got away, but he did go to prison
for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was hospitalized after that with 5 spots on my brain that were bleeding, and I spent 3.5 weeks in ICU.
Oh my goodness. So almost dead.
Yeah. And I've had every bone in my face almost broken. I have been hit in the face with a metal pipe. It crushed my sinus cavity. It broke the bone here above my eye, knocked my teeth out. I was kicked in the chin one time by a 6'4", 250-pound man that had steel-toe boots on.
Oh my goodness.
And he hit me so hard, I remember it crushed the whole right side of my face. But by God's grace, I was able to get away. Like, he has protected me through things. I shouldn't be alive today. I mean, there's more. I mean, I've had fentanyl put in my ear. I've had people try to kill me. I have been shot at.
Oh,
I have been the target of a drive-by shooting. I have been cut. I have been stabbed. But when you are living that fast life and you choose that lifestyle. But
this is all because of drugs, though.
Yes.
Like, let's go back and reiterate, all these bad things were because you were involved with people.
Yes.
You were doing the life.
Yes.
and you were associating with people that was heavily in the life.
Yes.
And it's usually because you owed them money or something. You know
gang
what I mean?
related.
Yeah, gang related
too.
stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's not all just for the disenfranchised. Remember, guys, we talked about where she came from.
Yes.
So this could be, house on the hill. It's perfect. It can happen to anybody. So I want to reiterate that, and that you did have a good job and you were working in the right places and knew the right people, and you still fell off tracks.
Yes.
So I'm sure there was some signs for friends and family that knew you, that know, like, hey, Betsy, you don't need to be hanging out with that dude. I'm sure there was a lot of that.
Yeah.
But because of the drugs and what it gave you, that comfort feeling you talked about, you were just masking the pain. You were just masking this and the feeling you get. I guess I'll be honest with you, I've never taken anything like that in my life, so I don't know how to relate, but I do know the stories, and I've seen it happen with people I know and love, and I've seen where it takes them. And it's not the person, by the way. I want to remind people of that. One of the things I've learned is it's the chemicals in your body that's making you do these things. So it's not the individual. Stacy's always got a thing, if you know that. He always talks about
I love him.
Getting the chemicals out of the body. You can do wonderful things with a person.
Absolutely.
But you got to get them clean. And there's damage there for life, because the chemicals mess with your brain, your body, everything. So you will say that through all that, it's all goes back to making a choice to do drugs. And it gets you involved in the wrong places. You go from, little Hernando area, technically.
Yes.
DeSoto County was small back then too. Married to a sheriff's deputy. Yep. Which I'm sure he just loved all this action. but there again, looking back on it, you're great friends with him now. You talked about how he's like one of your biggest supporters.
Yes.
And I mean, it just goes to prove to people that it can literally happen to anybody.
Yes.
At any age. And I'm sure at your age now, which I don't know what it is, but I'm guessing you're mid to late 40s. I'm
45.
guessing. Okay. I was right on the money. But here it is. It's probably a struggle on a regular trying to stay clean, because there's these pulls. And now, flash forward a little bit. I know we got a lot to talk about, but I do want to touch on one thing. At the end of your sobriety recently, in the last few years, I mean, I guess you've been clean 2 or 3 years now.
Almost 3.
Yeah. To where you haven't even touched it, hadn't been around it, keep your distance. But you were at Miss Ann Lunsford's house when you found your final sobriety.
Yes.
And you were writing this book, and a tragic thing happened to you. Talk about that a little bit.
I have 3 kids. I'm a mother of 3. My oldest daughter, and I'm going to tell y'all, because of my drug addiction and use, I put my kids through hell.
Right. Not the best mom.
I was not the best mom.
Right.
I was a terrible mom. I was a terrible person. Mother, daughter, sister, aunt, everything. But my oldest daughter was always the mom in the relationship.
Sure.
Mom, you are going to the doctor, and what are you doing? What are you getting? You're not getting this. You're not getting that.
Right.
And she would come see me at Miss Ann's, and it's funny because sometimes I would wake up and she would just be sitting on my bed. I'm like, Kelsey, how did you get in here?
Yeah.
I just walked in. I said, does Miss Ann know you're here? No. Like, okay.
She just made it in there.
That's how she was. She was 25. But she had came to see me October 29th of 2023. I got to Miss Ann's in June of 23. I was there 9 months. And she was just glowing. And I was like, what's going on? You just look so pretty today. And she was like, Mom, I want you to know that I'm so proud of you. And she said, you have finally become the mom I have always wanted you to be.
Nice.
And she said, I'm proud. And you're writing your book and you're doing this Jesus thing. And she said, because you're doing all this, I got baptized today and I rededicated my life.
Amazing.
And she passed away 5 days later.
Oh, my goodness.
Her and her dog were walking, and a young girl, she was only 18, was texting and driving and hit both of them.
Oh,
and it killed them. And it was the hardest thing I've ever been through, but I didn't leave the program. I didn't run and get high. And everybody's like, gosh, you're so strong. No, I'm not. I'm weak. My strength comes from God. And I don't know how to break that down with anybody because, not everybody believes. But I do, because I did it Betsy's way for 25 years and it didn't work. Sure. The only thing I never did was actually totally give my life to Christ and let him have full control. And I knew that my daughter was going to be the hardest one for me to pull into that decision. And really, she wasn't. Like, she saw me. She was like, oh my gosh, you are really doing this. And I'm proud of you. But I knew that she was proud of me. Why would I run back to that lifestyle when it didn't get me anywhere? And I'm pretty sure, like, if I was to go mess up, she would make it rain on me the rest of my life.
Right, thunderstorms, tornadoes, everything.
Lightning, everything.
First of all, I'm very sorry for your loss, and I want to be able to, I know you showed me a picture earlier.
Absolutely.
Pull
Here,
that
I'll
up,
pull it up.
and we'll show a picture, and I'll probably have Derek insert a picture of her. You can send it to me later.
Yes.
Beautiful young lady, and I'm sorry for your loss again.
Thank you.
But the closing silver lining in this, and if there is one, the last conversation pretty much you had with her is she told you how proud she was, and y'all had a connection, and you kind of, I bet that helped you a ton.
It did. And I remember, of course, after getting the phone call that she didn't make it, because Miss Anna came and grabbed me and was like, look, Kelsey was in an accident. And I was like, Kelsey's not going to have an accident. She can drive. Like, she learned from me.
Yeah.
But, you know, she didn't really know the whole story. So I said, can we please go call my mom? So we went back to her room and I called mom, and she really didn't know anything. She said, look, she got hit by a truck. Her and Mia, that was her dog. And she was like, all I know right now is her legs are broken. That's all I know. They're going to airlift her to the med. So Miss Ann was like, I'm going to take you to the med as soon as we find out. You know, I'm listening for helicopters then. Like, and now I still, when I hear helicopters, it's kind of like I think about her. But then we were just kind of laying there, and I remember she stayed right there beside me. I didn't leave her room. And then her phone rang, and because my sister called the hospital where she was at, because nobody could get anything. And she was like, that is my niece, and you're going to tell me right now what's going on. And they were like, we're sorry, she didn't make it. She died in the ambulance on the way. But I remember getting that phone call. Of course, I screamed and just laid in fetal position for like an hour. And then I got up. I didn't know what to do. So I just started, I'm a writer. I started writing. I just put, you know, thank you, God, for letting me have her for 25 years. Thank you for letting me be her mom. Thank you that she didn't have to go through learning to walk and talk again. Who knew that she wouldn't have been in a wheelchair the rest of her life or paralyzed? I said, I'm thankful that she didn't have to do that. I'm thankful that I got to hear those words come out of her mouth, because her whole life, that's all I wanted.
Yeah.
And it was just like a peace came over me. I don't know how to explain it. And I'm pretty sure a lot of it was shock too. But I did better than everybody else. Like, everybody's like, how are you together? And they're just bawling. And I'm like, I don't know. I think I'm in shock. I'm not sure. But I know where she's at. And I truly believe that this is not her home. Heaven is. So I had peace. And then, of course, like 9 months after she passed, it started that numbness, and that shock kind of wore off.
Sure.
And mentally, I kind of started going downhill, and I was like, I need my mom. And I was actually living with Tracy at that time, and he was like, look, I'm going to get you an airplane ticket one way. Just go and take your time. Do whatever you need. And so I went out there, and I lived there. I stayed about a year. And then I was like, Mom, I can't do this. Idaho's beautiful, but I'm a Mississippi girl. Sure. And all of my...
It's cold there.
Yeah. Well, it was really cold.
Yeah. And at times, anyway. So
it was really cold. It's a different kind of air. There's no humidity. But, that's right. And I was like, I need my support system. And like Stacy Dodd and all my church ladies and, you know...
And Tracy Whitehurst.
And Tracy. Yeah, absolutely. Like, he's in recovery, too. I want everybody to know that. And, you know, he just got his 12-year coin.
Telling me that. I didn't know that about Tracy, but I see he posts a lot about AA meetings and stuff. And
he was an alcoholic.
Yeah. I didn't know that about him. Our sons were neighborhood buddies.
Yeah, I remember Brooks and him. Yeah,
Brooks and Tyler and Cody and Ray. There was a bunch of them in the neighborhood. They were like 8 years old at the time. Now they're 30, 31 guys, just so you know.
I think Brooks is like 33.
He might be 31 or 32, somewhere in there.
Like that,
yeah. I think Tyler's getting ready to be 31, so Brooks probably is 32 or going to be 33. So, because he's a little older. Yeah. But yeah, his sobriety's cool too. You know, I'm lucky, like I said again, but I've lived around so many family members that struggled with ongoing alcoholism, or they never got into a program but needed to, you know, and it wasn't always available. You know, looking back 40 years ago when I was a little kid, or 45, I guess now, my grandmother was like, she'd take somebody in, put them in a room and lock the door, you know, with a skeleton key, and just like dry them out, you know, and I'm sure that was brutal. I watched it from afar going like, oh my God, like she was literally, it was a hard life, but there wasn't a lot of places like there are now. And I always say that, like, when we talk about Woodland and Precious and Pink and Tried and True and all the other wonderful programs in the area, Parkwood, whatever it may be, we need 10 more just like them.
Yes.
Because there's an epidemic here.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure it's everywhere, but really here it seems like we have a lot. And I'm focused on DeSoto County, Mississippi, and Tate County, and Tunica County, and Memphis, and all that. It's a local yokel show. That's why people are from here on here. So the idea is like, meth is a big problem here.
Yes.
You know, drinking alcoholism, Stacy always says it's one of the worst things to get people off of is alcohol, because it's so available to them. Like, especially if they're in a sober living house or something like that, it's so easy just to drop by the
gas
store.
Station.
You're there. So I get it, and it is when you talk about some of the programs you've been through, not to move on from your daughter's beautiful story, but she you have been through quite a few of these places over time. Now, 6 trips to jail.
Yeah, prison.
Prison. When you came out each time, were you immediately back in the life, or you did?
No.
Okay,
no.
So it took a little while, but then there would be a trigger or a relationship that got you back there, or something.
The man that I was married to, which is my youngest daughter's dad, he was actually cooking it.
Oh, wow.
And he put it before me and her. And, you know, I'm an honest person, and I have 5 felonies. I've been convicted 5 times, and I'm only good for 3 of them.
Right.
But I remember like praying, why am I in here and I didn't even do this? And I remember God just saying, what have you done the champion called at? Ooh, and I just kind of sat back and was like, okay.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he wrote a statement on me, actually, that put me in prison for something I didn't do. So coming out of prison and going back to that situation, not changing, the people, places, and things, because that's very important. And I'm sure Stacy has said that.
Man, all of them say it. Actually, like, you almost got to get out of your environment.
Yes,
like, where,
completely.
Matter of fact, the young lady at Miss Ann had on with her, she's like, oh yeah, I'm back there, neighborhood friends, which is like so easy to get back to the access. Like, oh girl, one hit won't get you. You know, one hit will put me right back where I'm
right back.
So. Yeah, I get that. So getting out of your element, your support system's one thing if they're not enabling you.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
I by no means have no schooling in this, so I want to make sure I'm clear to people. Like, I'm only learning as I go with this show. I'm meeting so many amazing, wonderful people like yourself that's been through it. Now, you were probably the first, outside the young lady Ann brought with her, you're probably the first recovering individual besides like Stacy and them that are doing all this, because most all of them, like Stacy and Jake, he's also a recovering addict as well,
right.
And most all of them that are running these programs are, because you have this passion to, like, oh, I know how I learned. This is how I can teach others, because it took me waking up to this to do it. And you all have a different way, and it works for different people in different ways. You know,
I remember, of course, in and out of rehabs, I did 3 year-long treatments in prison, a 6-month and a 4-month. Of course, I've done many rehabs on the street, inpatient, outpatient. I went to Vertava when it was Vertava. Now it's Woodland.
Yeah.
But it's still, bottom line is you have to choose to make that choice.
You got to want to do it.
Yeah, you got to want to do it.
Yeah.
And you do have to change people, places, and things. Because I went from Mississippi to Missouri thinking, oh, this is going to save me. I'm going to get out of this life. Went right into it.
Right back in it.
I was not ready to change. And you had mentioned that earlier about everybody trying to save you. Interventions, family, everything. You're going to rehab. You're going to do this, going to do that. That's not, it doesn't work. My rock bottom was not all the bad I've been through and the prison and all that. It was me reaching out to my mom and my daughter that passed away saying, look, I'm ready.
Yeah.
I want help.
Well, deep down, you were so sick of being, you know, you hear this all the way. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I think that that's a common denominator for all addicts and alcohol, you know, whatever it may be. You know what I mean? Whatever vice you're trying to kick. And I know that just from a child looking back to where the people I knew, and it was mostly alcoholism. And no matter how many times my grandmother would take that key, it was a skeleton key, by the way.
Yes.
Like on the old door.
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Yeah, it was rough. And she'd click it, and then we'd have to prepare the house for them.
Yeah.
You know, because you couldn't even have shaving cream in there, or you know what I mean, like aftershave lotion or something, you know, anything with alcohol in it. And a little guy, I learned about that early because I'm like, why not that? You know, and she's like, well, believe it or not, they'll drink it. And I'm like, what? I was thinking that stuff is hideous smelling, you know, but it's not that. It's just that craving that the body requires. And so it senses it in that, and they know there's something in there. So she'd use vanilla extract to wean them down.
Really?
Spoonfuls at a time.
Oh, wow.
And then get it to where it's manageable. She had a system, no doubt.
That's awesome,
She'd have been
though.
great.
I love that.
And then she'd maybe get to the point where she might bust her head open, you know, or something. Like she was that kind of person too.
I love it.
Yeah. She was a little bit of a disciplinarian when it come to that stuff. But yeah, seeing that as a young kid, I seen where like there was a time when he came to her and he called it was his aunt, and actually it was wild because I don't know if you know this, back in the old days, you know, my grandmother was a baby of 13.
Wow.
And so she might have been 20 years younger than her older sibling. Or even more. And so her nephew was like literally just a year or so within her age, but it was his aunt, and she was trying to help him. But he was the only one out of the family, that he would ever listen to.
Oh, wow.
And mine, not even his own mother and him, you know. So he would come to her door and ask for help. And that's where it started, you know. So I seen that to where when it finally kicked for him and worked, of course, he was, probably in his 60s by then. Wow. You know, it's a long life of that. And went through a fortune. Financially, heart attacks, and you know, he'd sweat like no other, man. Sometimes we'd be outside working, and I was like, "What's wrong with him?" You know,
it's the alcohol.
It was the alcohol. Like, so I was learning so much. So I learned just like everybody else that's listening. If you've ever been around someone who has an addiction issue as a child, you picked up on things, and if you were smart enough to ask the question, like somebody that was sober, they'd be honest with you. Luckily, mine was, and they didn't try to hide it from me because we were living within it. You know,
right?
So, but it goes back to they had to be ready.
Yes.
And that's why I know that. When I say that, it's not because of my experiences with some kind of treatment myself, or I'm educated. I'm not. I just know what I've seen in life, and that's what I'm all about. Anyway, that's how I live my life, is just by what I see, people I meet tell me. So you're learning stories. So for you, it was a rock bottom place where you just finally said, I've had enough, man. Like, I've done this for 25 years.
Yes.
And I am like not getting any younger. You probably felt and looked like you're 80. Like you're probably just in this state of like just done.
I was done.
Yeah.
And I'll say this too, like when I started back in the day, that things were different. Nowadays, it is very dangerous.
Well, I would say if there is a clean drug, if you can use that word.
There's not any.
But back
nowadays
then,
it's killing
safer.
everybody. Everything's killing everybody.
Yeah, right. So everything's got fentanyl in it.
Yes.
And that's the dangerous part. Like they're even putting it in vapes now and stuff, you know, which is nuts. Like, I know it's cheaper, more profitable, I guess, at the from that standpoint, but it also is just so unregulated. Like, you know, you don't know what big a dose is in there.
No,
you know?
You don't.
I know they're not trying to kill their customers, but they're just trying to make it more profitable.
Right.
And they don't really care at the end of the day. They're just trying to sell more.
Right.
So the more powerful drug it is, and you're thinking as an addict, you're thinking, wow, I could get, this stuff's going to be powerful. And that's what you're looking for.
Right. Like with me, I'm very bad at ADHD.
Yeah.
So everything did the opposite on me. I never did fentanyl except for when it was forced on me. Like I said earlier, somebody had put it in my ear.
How do they put it in your ear? Like, what was that about?
My son's father had passed away. There was somebody living in his house, and they were ordering pills online. And this has all been turned in, so I don't mind talking about it. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I reached out to somebody about it so they would know. And because, they just passed a law in Mississippi that if there's anything involved like fentanyl, everybody's getting charged with murder.
Yeah, everybody.
But my son's father, his name was Andy, he had taken 5 of these pills, and he thought they were Xanax.
Wow.
And they ended up being straight fentanyl. They locked him in a room from the outside, and he was dead for 5 days in this house.
Oh, man.
So me and Kelsey, my daughter that passed, got the phone call. We went over there and had to clean up everything. And his dad asked me to kind of stay in the house to keep an eye on things until he could get down because he lives in Florida. Our son lives in Florida. He said, I need somebody I can trust to just kind of keep an eye on things. So I was there and I had to go through Andy's stuff and pack it up and get rid of everything, go through the attic because they weren't going to come back to that house. There was just too much there.
Yeah.
And it really took a toll on me. It made me really mentally drained and depressed. And I tried to kill myself in that house. I took a whole bottle of heart medicine. And while I was asleep, somebody in the house put fentanyl in my ear.
Oh, wow.
Because when I woke up, I remember like some days later, my ear was hurting. So I cleaned it out with a Q-tip and it was bright blue. The color of the pills that they were getting from the internet because I actually
So you say somebody was in the house, so there was somebody living with him when he died?
Yes, he had roommates.
So they had locked him in his room at that time, and he was obviously dead, like you said, for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And so y'all go there to try to kind of straighten it up. Meanwhile, these roommates were still there.
Still there.
And so that's what you think. One of those tried to, so to speak, off you.
Because I wasn't the only person.
Right.
And 3 weeks after he had passed away, one of the roommates passed away too.
Wow.
So it was a female. We won't really go into detail about that because nothing was really done with the law.
Sure.
I kind of feel like sometimes the justice system looks at it as they're drug addicts, they're felons, they're gone, they're out of our hair. But that's a whole nother podcast. But that's just my opinion. But anyway, so with that, I had cleaned everything up. I woke up, ear infection, cleaned my ear out. And I remember kicking in one of the doors in that house. And I said, look, you can't kill me. Because I have a purpose. When I woke up from all that, I knew I was like, I have a purpose and I should be dead over and over and over so many times before this. And this really was the nail that just, whatever.
Yeah, because you done took a whole bottle of pills, plus they put fentanyl in your ear.
Yeah, and I woke up.
And you woke up. So
I've been shot at,
you meant to be
stabbed.
Here.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's when I found Miss Ann's.
Yeah.
Like I told you, I had reached out to my mom and daughter for help, and they told me no.
Yeah.
They said, get it yourself. Because we're sick of you crying wolf.
Mm-hmm.
You have done the same thing over and over, and you never change. So we're done. But that was that tough love that I needed. And that's when I hit my knees and looked up and was like, okay, God, you got me where you want me. I have nobody. I have nothing. Do whatever it is you're going to do with me. And I got a phone call from one of my best friends from high school like 5 minutes later that I hadn't talked to in 15, 20 years. And I don't even know how she got my number.
Right.
She was like, Betsy, I don't know why I'm calling you or even reaching out, but are you okay? I feel like something's telling me to call you. And I was like, no, I'm not. And she got me Miss Ann's number. And that's how I was in a hotel and called Miss Ann. I was like, you don't know me, but I need you. And she said, where are you? I'm on my way. So that's how I found Miss Ann. Now, Miss Ann's program, she goes into the jails and she preaches about God, and she usually brings the women home with her that don't have anywhere to go. A lot of her women are in drug court. Mm-hmm. If they need an address for Mississippi to do drug court, she offers that. But we called me like the stray dog or whatever, and that hotel was the pound, and she rescued me. But that's how I got to her and started really focusing on my book. I finally forgave my dad after 19 years because I was not going to.
Right.
I was like, I hate him, and I was angry and full of rage, but it rubbed off on everything around me. And then somebody had made a statement one time, do you really think that your dad's thinking about you? Is he really going through what you're going through because of what happened? I was like, no, I know he's not. So that's when, Miss Ann was like, you've got to forgive him. And you have forgiven somebody when you pray, when you think about him and you don't want to hurt him.
Yeah.
Or you actually start praying for him or ask somebody to pray for him. So that's how, once I did that, then it was just like weight was lifted off my shoulders. And then all that I had stuffed comes out. And that's something, I want everybody to know. When you get sober, there's a lot that's going to come out, and there's a lot you're going to have to deal with.
You have to.
But that's why you have support systems.
Yeah, and then like waking up to it. That's what I always say. Like a lot of times, this learning about the things I'm learning about late in my life is very eye opening I think I told one of my guests one time, it's like a newborn baby. I'm just waking up to all these new information. Well, I guess it's kind of similar because you've really been in a fog, so to speak, because of the drugs and the addiction. So you haven't been able to think straight or deal with problems that you've been masking for a really long time. So all of it comes full force at once.
Yes.
Yeah. So like you're having to deal with this on a level like nobody understands. And I'm sure it's probably unique to the individual because of whatever their past trauma is, and I would definitely say it's trauma because you were adding to your trauma as you were going through all this stuff the whole time. And then probably the one thing that should have put you over the edge, because I don't know how I would have dealt with it, is your daughter passing in a freak accident in a way, even to this day, I mean, that's probably one of my worst nightmares, one of my children or my grandchildren ever getting caught up in, I just couldn't even imagine losing one of them, So, but for you to keep your sobriety for that's the first thing I realized when you told me that. I'm like, you kept your sobriety through that?
Absolutely.
And you're like, yeah, I did. And I think you'd freshly come on this show right before that had happened with Coach Camp.
Yes.
On Motivated with Coach Camp, you'd done a podcast with him about being in the program with Miss Ann, which, by the way, I want to tell people, Chris has been, he's on the board for Precious and Pink now. So congratulations to him. He's also on the board with the Hope Center.
Yes.
And Stacy Dodd, those guys. So congratulations to him on that. He's doing a great job. Why I am podcasting today is because of Coach Camp himself.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but we all deal with things so differently, and it's easy to pick up that drink or take a pill or smoke. I don't know what you do with meth, to be honest with you. So is it a pill?
Yeah. No, you can eat it, snort it, IV use,
whatever. Right? So point being is it's a hit to kind of get you there. It's like heroin or anything else. All drugs are meant to make you not feel.
Yes.
And
that's why people start using, because like you said a while ago, there's an underlying trauma.
Sure.
And when that trauma happens, they don't know how to deal with it. Or usually as a younger adult, you're not taught how to deal with it because nobody thinks anything bad's ever going to happen to them. And then when that happens, or maybe say they drink and they're like, oh, that took that away.
Yeah.
I don't have to feel that. So then it might be marijuana or alcohol they start with. But then when that doesn't work anymore, they go for the harder stuff. And I've never been anyone that was addicted to alcohol, marijuana. Heroin did me different than everybody else. The meth actually calmed me and brought me.
It's probably the ADHD.
Yes.
Yeah, I think because people equivalate meth as just like a
Speed.
Yeah.
No,
well,
we did the opposite.
It's it's almost like Adderall. Like
yes.
Adderall is like a legal form of meth. They always say. Now I know there's chemical differences, but how it might react, and I've also talked to people, and this is just my own personal opinion by what I've observed, but a lot of people with ADHD problems that probably need to be on Adderall or some kind of form of medication to help with that disorder. Meth is their choice. And the reason because it has that effect on you.
And it helps you focus.
It does. So it allows your mind to calm.
Yes.
It allows you to kind of stay focused a little bit. So I understand that. When I talk to people who has been meth addicts, typically a lot of times it is because they're unmedicated.
Right.
In their real lives, or it becomes very difficult to get it.
Absolutely.
So they kind of find an outside path to it, or it started with a pain pill addiction, and then meth become the only thing available. So they took it and I'm like, oh my goodness, my mind is like, so then it's become more and more and more.
Yes.
And then you get to the point where you're numbing. Now you're just out of your mind. You know what I mean? And if you don't take it, you'll get sick.
Yes.
So there's a lot of things that go on this spiral that takes place in the course of your addiction. Now, I'm sure every story is a little bit unique, but the high majority of it starts sounding similar to the people that are running the recovery program. So what's great about like Stacy and people like that is he can say, hey, you know how Stacy talks? Hey, I've done it all. I've done smoked it all. Yes. I've done drank it all. I've done took it all.
He went to prison in Missouri like me. Yes.
Tell me another lie. All right. That's what he'll tell you. So, but that's great about a person who has been through it to show you like, nobody is worse than his case. I mean, we was talking the other day. He was smoking Marlboro Reds at 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, like regularly. Yeah, it's hilarious.
I love it.
His story, but it's funny, but it ain't funny. You know what I mean? So, but he can laugh about it now because he's on the other side of it. And he's trying to help so many people. But one of the things that's what I was trying to get at was like this. this correlation to medication versus like you might have needed some actual prescription drugs in your life and just never got the access to it.
I was wrongly diagnosed when I was younger.
Yeah.
Like, the parents don't want to hear your child's ADHD. So my thing was, my mom made me go to counseling.
Back then they didn't. Yeah.
When I was 14, they said, she has a chemical imbalance. She's bipolar.
Yeah.
I was not bipolar. I've never been bipolar.
Sure.
I've never been a depressed person. It was ADHD. And my dad wasn't having that. He was not going to hear that. I don't need anything.
Well, there's a stigma behind things back then. If you needed like an antidepressant or a anti-anxiety or something along the lines of Ritalin or any of that stuff, there was stigma behind that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm guessing that's probably what took place with your father's or your mother, whoever. It was like, no, she's fine. We just got a little more discipline. She'll be good.
That's exactly right. And that's how it was back in the day. Nowadays they're quick to put a pill in their child's mouth.
Too quick. Yeah.
But with me, my body rejected all of that, like the antidepressants and the bipolar medication. So when I did meth for the first time, that's when I was like, hold up.
This is it.
I'm calm. Mm-hmm. I can focus. I can see. And yes, I have, as an adult, been on Adderall. Mm-hmm. I didn't like the Adderall because, of course, the mind part, it worked amazingly. Mm-hmm. But it still made my body and my hands and feet feel like I was still using.
Right.
And I didn't like that. Like my hands would curl up.
Maybe you had too much of a high dose or something.
I take Strattera now, which is a non-amphetamine medication for ADHD, and I love it.
Well, there's a lot of new stuff out there that people don't realize that don't have to go back to Adderall.
Right.
Adderall is just speed, man.
I didn't like it at all. But I had come to that point in my life, though, where I wasn't looking for that either.
Sure.
A lot of people misuse it.
But now you're in a place to where, looking back on it, the trigger mechanism may not have been your father. It could have been what you used as a crutch at that point in time to get you there. But it could have been the unmedicated ADHD.
Absolutely. And he just topped it off.
And it just topped it off. So like you found this little drug that made you feel a certain way.
Yes.
And now 25 years later or whatever, you found something that works really well. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing your mental health is in a wonderful place, or you wouldn't be able to sit here and do this.
Yes.
And so that's why I try to tell people like the options in life, like what experiences you've had, because I know lots of people that are ADHD. I could be a little bit of myself. I don't even know. My son says I am, but I don't. I've never been medically declared.
Right.
But it's not, the Adderall is not always the answer.
Right.
Sometimes it could be exercise. Sometimes it could be just lots of different things for lots of different people. Everybody has different things that work for them. It's not a one size fits all thing with addiction. Every program's different. For one person that loves Miss Ann's Place, it's not going to work for another person because it is a very, very jail after jail type program. It's not that you're behind bars, but you're basically having to start over.
Yeah, and it's strict. She has rules, and you have to go by them.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the women there didn't want to follow those rules because they thought, those are stupid. I don't understand them. It's because she's trying to get you ready for bigger rules in the world that you don't like, but you still have to follow them.
Yeah, and get the chemicals out, allowing you to find yourself. Like you said, you spent 9 months there. I would say that's fairly average.
Yes.
From what I understand. I'm sure it's not perfect system. It's not for everybody. The people who have been through there, they love it. That's been there. I know that there's other places that work better for other people, but the idea behind it is all these programs, by the way, that I always talk about need support. They need financial. They need volunteers. They need clothing. They need toiletries. They need all that stuff. So anytime we're talking about these programs, folks that's listening, if you pick up on it, that's pretty much what we're about, is kind of allowing people to know that these programs exist, but they don't exist without help. They have to have help. Donate, drop off toilet paper, clothing, find out their needs, food, whatever it can be. It's always a need. So, but for not being a one-stop shop for everybody, Woodland, a big organization like that has a lot of money behind them. They're a little bit different because they offer different successes. But even then, Stacy will tell you it's not for everybody.
Right.
Like there needs to be a program like Miss Ann's or like Jake and M's. It's got these sober living houses or something like that. The tried and true recovery. It's you got to find uniquely what works for this person.
Yes.
And what's good about Stacy is he might not take you to his program, but he might find another one good
will.
for you. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And I do a lot of, like I said, I give back. I sponsor women that are wanting to change, and they have already made it either through a recovery program, and they just need a sponsor. That's what I do.
Extra help afterwards. Yeah. And you talk about sponsor when you say that. What are you sponsoring them into? Is it just like finding resources for them? Is it?
Well, like when you're in recovery, which I know you don't know anything about some of it, but like AA, there's 12 steps.
Yeah.
Celebrate Recovery, there's 12 steps. And they preach to you to find a sponsor. And that sponsor has to have at least so much time clean, have been through something. And it's just kind of like a mentor.
Sure.
I'm there. Like when they're having a bad day, they call.
Right.
I don't keep up with them. My rule is you have to keep in touch with me.
Sure.
You have to text me every day. If you have a problem, call me, but not at 3:00 in the morning because your boyfriend broke up with you and you want to go drink.
We got to just keep it.
No.
Yeah. We got to keep it at least in a business hours.
Right. My rule is text me first.
Yeah.
And if I can call and it's an emergency, I promise I will call them right back.
Yeah.
But it's just to kind of give them a little bit of guidance. I'm actually in school to be a substance abuse counselor. Just finished my first semester with a 4.0. I'm totally just super excited about it because, everybody's always said you can't do it.
Well,
yes,
you can. I mean, I think you can do it at any age. I think that's admirable. I applaud you for that because I think that starting education over after 40 is crazy sometimes.
It's very scary.
It's a whole different kind of education program that we're all used to. But I wasn't good when I was there early. I definitely wouldn't be good now. But but I think we need more people that even if you don't put it to use in a career study, you will understand more about it and you'll know how to help people. Like even if it's your neighbor or your friend, or whatever, maybe a family member, you'll know how to help someone deal with a problem.
Absolutely.
If you don't apply it, but just studying, some people have to do continuing education. Maybe that's a place to go, but for you, you're looking at possibly making it a career for yourself.
I am. Yeah. That's what I want to do. And I've always wanted to, but I was never to the point in my life to where I was ready to stop using. But through my 25 years, of course, I've told you I've been in many rehabs and I was in rehab in prison. I've had many counselors and I've had a lot that have sat down in front of me and said, well, I've never drank, I've never used, but I understand where you're coming from. No, you don't.
You can't.
And I want a new one because me and you are not going to click. We're not going. You're not going to understand anything that I'm saying, and I'm not going to take in anything that you're saying.
Sure.
I'm not saying that makes them a bad counselor. That was me. That was my preference.
Sure.
And then I've had many counselors that have been through what I've been through or worse. And I remember the very first one that had been through something that I had. And I remember him telling me, I've been there, done that. Mm-hmm. I've been sober 25 years. I've done this, I've done that. And he said, if you want help and you want what I've got, get in here, sit down and shut up and listen.
Yeah.
If you don't want it, don't let the door hit you in the ass.
Because he knows it's a waste of time.
That's what I needed. That was another form of that tough love. Yeah. So, that I will never forget him. I'm sure he's gone by now because he was older then. But
I'm sure it takes people that I'm not saying someone don't get educated, don't know.
Right.
That's like saying someone who's a domestic survivor can't understand domestic abuse without going through it. I understand all that stuff. But it does help, I think, when you can relate to someone that's been through what you're going through. So that's probably why it probably hit so hard for you with him, and you're like, and you remember him because you're like, okay, this dude's not gonna put up my junk. He knows,
that's right.
You know what I mean? And like we talked about with Stacy and all those other guys that do these things, a lot of them have been through it. And then some of those people are amazing at it, like Miss Ann, that didn't have a problem with it, but she's tough love and she's wanting to help them. And a lot of cases with her, that's the only way you're going to get out of jail is to go with her.
That's exactly right. You're exactly. Yeah. And I feel like though with Miss Ann's, like hers was. It's not a recovery place. It's better to go through like a 30-day inpatient and then go into a program like she runs because there are rules. But, you don't get medical detox there. Mm-hmm. She's not a medical facility. She is somebody that's trying to teach you a new way to live.
Sure.
And you have to be ready for that.
Yeah. And it's also No phone access. No,
Yes.
I mean, you're watching the inspirational channel most of the time. You're trying to find your
You
path.
can't listen to music unless it's K-Love.
That's right. So it's very structured. But there's people that need that.
Yes,
you know
absolutely.
what I mean? And you would argue that you're the one.
Yeah, I was one of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm grateful for that program because I got to sit down for 9 months without a phone, without internet, and really learn who I was sober.
And a lot of time to think and reflect, and it's probably a good place for that. And it's allowed you time to write this book. Yeah, from Junkie to Jesus. And that's great. Faith has, I'm not a entrenched faith oriented person. So I always tell people that because, just about everything I do on here is faith-based. We're in the South.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I would say, though, that 90% of recovery facilities are faith-based.
Yes.
There is a process to it because it is structured and it teaches you a way to live and it gives you a path and I guess it would be a moral compass, so to speak, to where it can kind of keep you on path. And that's what works for you, you know. And I'm pretty sure that the 12-step programs that everything's associated with alcoholism or drug rehabilitation comes back to the 12 steps, which typically falls in with the faith-based stuff.
That's right.
So there's a reason why there's a correlation. And I don't denounce that because of my lack of following. But I don't discount it at all. I always say my mother, she was faithful as all get out, and the stuff that I do with like Feed My Lambs and helping with other organizations, it just comes from a place where I'm compelled to help, and my mom always says, well, you're in it. You just don't know it, and I'm like, well,
absolutely.
It could be possible that you're saying it right. I don't know. But I've often wondered, looking back on it when I was young, not only my grandmother put the skeleton key and lock the door, she would leave biblical stuff in there for him.
Absolutely.
So like kind of help if you get bored, you need to read, and that kind of stuff. So it all is, there's a correlation to it all, for sure.
And I'm pretty sure your mama has prayed for you.
Oh, man.
And that's why her prayers have carried you.
Yeah, probably have.
Yeah.
Well, again, lucky, man. Like I was like you, if anybody ever knew her, they could never forget her, but
I loved her.
We're a very special lady and lost her way too soon.
Yeah.
And abruptly as well. However, I was raised in a family to where I didn't have any trauma and stuff, like I think me and my brother were two of the luckiest people in the world to have the parents we have. And I think a lot of people feel that way, but there's a whole bunch of people who don't.
That's
you know
right.
what I mean?
There's a lot of it.
Yeah. Now looking back, there's some stuff looking back on, I was like, well, that wasn't so good. But, I didn't look at it as like a reason not to try to just look at life as positive, I'm like, that's a learning lesson. That's
Absolutely.
What that was. Was our parents perfect? No. A lot of times I'd be like, okay, note to self, when I become a daddy, do not do that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. So that's how I learned, so, or man, my mama is jacked up, man. What is wrong with her? Like, crazy stuff. God love her, but like none of us are perfect,
Right.
But we learn by what we see and don't try not to utilize, if you can, if you're in that path, stop blaming the people in your life or the lack of people in your life for your problems and turning to drugs. I know it's an easy crutch to fall on and go, hey, well, that's why I'm here, and that's like you were saying earlier, that's what you initially blamed for your, and it probably did trigger it, but it probably goes back to a little bit of the ADHD stuff. And just at that point, life gets calm. You're not in sports. You're not in school. So you lose focus. It's just a job, and you got this empty time in your life after work and stuff. There's a lot of correlations to things. We don't even know how to.
Peer pressure, too.
Peer pressure, all this stuff. The people you're running with, there's 100 different things or thousands probably. I don't even know. But all I'm trying to do here is just make people aware of what's options out there. And you're in a wonderful example of how you can go from the good life to the bad life, back to the good life. There is a path to it, and all the things you've been through, and we didn't even touch on it today because there's so much stuff.
We would be here for a week.
Yeah. Because you have lived it,
I lived it.
And I know we talked about it briefly on the phone. I was even shaking my head. I was like, say what? Repeat that again. And you were like, yep, that happened to me. And I'm like, wow. And, but however, you look at this as all of it was teaching moments to you of how to other your life and try to help others. So at the end of the day, getting sober for you in your sobriety of addiction, I guess, whatever you want to call it, your focus is now to help others.
Yes.
To get away from it quicker or don't get in it. Like, some of it's like, obviously we want to make sure people don't even try to associate with it, but it's hard, like how do you stop someone from falling down that trail? I don't know. Cause we talked about how good you had it and then you fall into it, but like, you don't know the next person, this most beautiful young lady in the world that's had everything her whole life. And it's like rainbows and Skittles, as you call it. And then one day they just try something and it makes them feel a certain way. And then it's on, and it can start with a prescription drug, to be honest with you, a lot of times, so I don't know how to answer that. And I don't think nobody knows how to answer that. And we're just now finding places, and more of them available to us around here to where you can help get people out of it maybe quicker than before. Would you agree with that part of it?
Yes, absolutely. And there's a lot of places like Miss Ann's. It's not really advertised. It's by word of mouth. So,
because by the way, she can't take 100 people. Like it's a
there's a waiting list, kind of.
Yeah, there really is. And she's got to be willing to take you too. It's kind of like she's got to make sure you're the right fit for her house, because all it takes is one to disrupt that whole place.
Yeah, and she doesn't lie about her rules and what goes on. Yeah. And I remember her talking about, how women are like, I want to come there. And then she told them what was going on, and they changed their mind.
Sure.
No phone, no smoking.
Oh, by the way.
No anything.
No relationships.
No relationships. Yeah. No men were allowed.
No relationships.
No relationships.
Period. And it does, and that goes back for relationships, period. Like I want to reiterate that. Men or women, it doesn't matter what you're involved with. You cannot have them there. So
she wanted you to focus on yourself.
That's right. So it's a place to where you get all the chemicals out before you get there, and then we start with a raw product of Betsy. That's right. And we work our way back, building you back up.
Right. And when you're ready, though, when you're completely ready to make that change and you choose recovery, you will do whatever it takes.
Sure.
To get to where you need to be.
Yeah,
that's where I was at.
So, you'd only been in there a couple of months when your daughter passed. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
6 months, yeah.
Yeah, and so like that next 3 months was probably some of the most eye-opening times, most likely. It
was, and I'm pretty sure that Miss Ann probably thought I was going to run out of there.
Yeah, I bet.
And I really think a lot of the times Miss Ann really thought that I was just full of myself, because just the way that I was a little bit closed off, but I was really focusing on me. But then I was also that one that kind of like was the protector in a way, or I wasn't going to let nothing happen to her.
Sure.
And if she needed me to ride with her because she was kicking somebody out that we had to pick up from drug court.
Yeah, we don't talk about the bad side of that.
I went with her because I wasn't going to let anything happen to her. So everybody came to me, Betsy, somebody's out in the yard. Okay, well, let me run out there and go look.
Yeah.
Not scared of anything, just because I've been through.
Were you there when the house burnt down?
Yes.
Oh, wow. So they're almost back to getting it built now.
Yeah. And me and Miss Patty just on their way here drove by there. It's the first time I've seen it since.
Yeah.
But I remember getting woke up. Somebody came running in my room screaming, Betsy, the house is on fire. And I was like, I remember rolling over, looked at my clock, and I was like, it's 4:02.
Wow.
I said, go find me the fire extinguisher. I'm getting up. I went to the bathroom. And then when I came out of the bathroom, I couldn't even see in front of me. The smoke was already so bad it had come up because the fire happened at the other end of the house, but it came all the way up there. And I was just like, well, oh no, forget the fire extinguisher. We got to get out.
Just everybody's got to get out.
We got to get out. So we had to sit outside in the van and watch it burn.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah. There was nothing you could do.
No.
Yeah. And I know they tried everything they could to stop it. I get that. But man, it just, when you got it's a big home, I know.
It was. It was long. It was I called it the Green Mile. Walking the Green Mile.
Yeah. That's a good movie, by the way.
Yes, it was.
But yeah, there again, though, they've had some help getting it rebuilt. Probably better than ever.
Yes.
Now I know she's really excited. I keep watching her post pictures on Facebook of their progress. Have you been seeing that?
I saw a few of them, but I wanted to see the house actually I
haven't been by it. Yeah.
It kind of to me looks like maybe like a barndominium, but not. I don't know. It's got a really big front porch on the front. It's going to be beautiful.
That. Yeah. So a good place. Y'all
it's in a good spot.
They can all congregate together out there, and she can probably hold her church, if you will, out there. So, but yeah, man, those programs are all cool, and I love the fact that you're now trying to find a way to get yourself educated. Not only, I think you could do it probably without education.
Yeah.
But
just because I've lived it.
But you getting an actual degree in it and being able to work in that field is going to be amazing for you. I mean, I think you'd be a quick hire because, like, obviously those are the best people to get is the ones who've lived it, you know.
I actually had an interview at Woodland and got hired.
Did you?
But the lady that hired me ended up quitting that day and my stuff didn't get turned in.
Oh, Lordy.
But I look at it as, okay, I'm not ready yet. God kind of closed that door. You know, they're in a big transition because it was Vertava when I went there.
Yeah.
And then Woodland bought it. So there's a lot going on.
And they're building a new facility.
Yes.
I think that Stacy was telling me it's like a new $25 million facility, 100-bed in-house. Yeah, it's
going to
pretty
be
cool.
Beautiful.
He's really excited about that. So, but, you know, it's kind of a small world. I mean, there's a couple 100,000 people live in this county, probably 500,000. It's come and went. And we all seem to know each other in one capacity or another.
That's
it's really
right.
wild. And there's like 1 million people who live north of us. It's kind of wild, but it's just north of us too. But this county and this community, it's not just DeSoto, but I include Tate, Panola, Marshall, Tunica. It's like the surrounding areas, you know, and we all kind of seem to know each other. Like you called me thinking, I don't know that guy, but I need to get on his show. And it turns out we knew all these similar people. And you even knew my mama.
I knew your mama. I worked for her. I sold Mary Kay.
You sold Mary Kay.
Yes.
And now you're a local yokel.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. So, but is there anything else today you'd like to focus on that we didn't talk about, like maybe that you missed or?
Well, one thing, I did write book number 2.
Okay, good.
And it's called Unbreakable. But my sister is doing the cover, so I'm waiting on her to do that. But it's been edited, everything. I just have to publish it.
Nice.
It actually goes into detail more about my trials and tribulations, like my time in prison and all the bad relationships and stuff that I've been through. So there is an age limit on that one.
Sure.
And I made sure that I did that, but
maybe a little rated R. Yeah, because this one here is kind of like obviously your story from like what we talked about today, where you came from to where you got to be hooked, then you got off of it.
Yep.
Now you're living a good life. But that story tells all the in between.
Yeah.
The second book.
Well, this was done before my daughter passed away.
Okay.
And then after she passed, I went back and added to it.
Sure.
Because I wanted to be able to help those parents that maybe were stuck from losing a child.
Sure.
And that's something that I just kind of really wanted to touch on too, is like, you know, find me. I'm on Facebook. Betsy Bailey on Facebook.
Betsy Bailey on Facebook.
And you're going to put all my information out there too on that and call me. But, you know, there's not anything I haven't been through.
Sure.
It would be easier for me to make a list of what I haven't been through than what I have, because we would be here forever. But that doesn't define me. It just proves that there is something bigger out there than me that has pulled me through, which I call God, who is my higher power. And I leaned on him during the worst time of my life, which was losing a child.
Right.
I would have rather went through all the abuse I've ever been through on a daily for the rest of my life than to go through the pain of having to bury my child.
I think that grieving is such an individual thing.
Yes.
But I've never done it from a level you have.
Yeah.
It's one thing losing a parent or a sibling. It's a whole nother child, I imagine. But again, I don't understand it because I haven't been through it. You know,
and there's days I don't understand it either. I'm like, why? I mean, I miss her. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And there's days that I cry my eyes out, or I'll go through my phone and watch videos of her. But then it's just like something hits me, like, you're going to see her again. She's okay. And I tell people all the time, if I could bring her back here, would I? No. She wouldn't want to come.
Right.
This world is crazy right now.
Man, I tell you, it is. I can remember after us having a child, me and my wife, and one time, it was right after 9/11. We'd actually had him before 9/11. He was probably like 3 months old, 4 months old. And she just looked at me and she's like, what in the world were we thinking? You know what I mean? She's like, why would we bring a child into this? Like, because it was at that time, if you remember back in 9/11.
I remember me and Tracy were married when 9/11 happened.
And I just remember that conversation. I'm like, well, she ain't wrong, man. Like, you know, we don't know. It's so questionable about the world. And then, you know, I think that's something that's happened. Like if you go back to World War II, you know, when D-Day happened and stuff and things like that, I'm sure people had those same questions of, my goodness, like, is it ending?
What were we thinking?
So what were we thinking? You know, we've only had 13 kids. Like, you know, but so I think that's true in a lot of capacity because of the stress and stuff we live under every day and the pressures a lot of times force people. And hey, that's no doubt either another reason why people fall into a passion or a path of drugs and alcohol is because of the pressures of society.
Yes.
The cost of living is just immense. It's undue pressure, if you ask me, for people.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's one thing if you're comfortable and you're living a life, you don't worry about it. But there's a lot of people out here. I don't know how they're making it. I really don't.
I don't either.
But I can tell you this, folks, don't turn to that stuff because it'll get worse and worse and worse, you know.
You'll end up in prison.
Well,
or dead.
And you're thinking like, well, it'll just give me a minute to not think about it. Well, you're right about that. But not everybody can deal with it. You know what I mean? A lot of people, like I have this ability to, I've drank before and I've done stuff, but I just never had an addictive personality with it. Yeah, I think that's the thing. A lot of people don't have that shut off to where they go, okay, I've had enough or whatever. It's just like the more I drink, you know, that old Blake Shelton song.
It's a Russian roulette type thing. People don't know if they have that addictive behavior yet until you try it, but then it's too late.
Yeah, I think about
after that first time.
Yeah, and then you wind up in a position where then you become ashamed to ask for help, or you don't want nobody to know you're going through it. You know, there's a lot of that stuff goes on, you know, and so I totally understand that. But I mean, again, your story is amazing. I know, like, once you did Coach's show, you were in the house. That's been a few years ago, and now it's a new Betsy.
Yes.
Completely.
Absolutely.
You've even moved halfway across the country and back with your family. You've got your mother here with you now, correct?
Yep.
And your daughter.
Yes.
And you're living close by in the county. I'm not going to say where. Because I don't know where, but I know the town. I just don't want to say. But I mean, if you want to get in touch with her, her telephone number, she told me to tell y'all this, is 662-901-9057. If you want to talk to her about her recovery process or the way she's grieved her daughter and how she's survived that as well and kept her sobriety during that time, which I think is an amazing story within itself. I mean, I do.
If you need me, call me.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, you can always reach her at betsy.s.swindle@gmail.com if you would like to talk to her that way anonymously or whatever you want to do. You don't have to talk to her on the phone. And then look her up on Facebook. I know that she has a huge following on Facebook. A lot of people know you from just your time in the drug world, I'm sure.
Yes.
And then it goes back to where they're like, wow. You know what I mean? So I'm sure it's kind of nice for them to see you and go, hey, man, she's doing great.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So, and for that, I just wish you the best success in your continued recovery, and that you stay on path, and hopefully nothing pulls you away from that. I think, from your relationship with the Lord, as you talked about, has been probably your biggest ally in this whole thing, is just keeping you focused and paying attention to what's important in life and trying to help others, and your community service. We didn't talk about that a whole lot, but like sponsoring the kids and doing the things of that nature, or the other ladies in the programs, trying to, be their person to lean on in a time of need. Mentor. I think that's a good word for it. More than sponsor. I think a mentor is a good word. Yeah. And you do a lot of that. What else do you do that you feel like people, if they wanted to have you help and get involved, what would be something you'd want to get in?
I'm big in Celebrate Recovery. Yeah. I'm a leader at the Get Well Church, Celebrate Recovery. That is on Tuesday nights. We eat at 6:00 and the meeting starts at 6:30. I also attend South Point Celebrate Recovery, which is on Thursday nights at South Point Church, which is the old movie theater.
State Line Road.
By Lollipops. Yes.
Yeah.
We start at 6:30 every Thursday, but then on the last Thursday of the month, we eat.
Right.
At that one, it's just once a month.
You don't let Stacy cook, do you?
Heck no.
He's probably got
I wouldn't eat it.
Yeah,
wouldn't eat it. No, I'm just kidding. Love you, Stace.
Yeah. But I know a lot of people go to that church. A lot of big members that's in recovery, like that have recovery programs. There's a lot of them. I know. I could mention quite a few names that I know that go to that church. It's a big part of the community.
Yes.
I didn't realize how big it was until I got into this podcast, and I realized the connection back to a lot of those folks. To the South Point Church. And I have some good friends that go there that's not a part of that side of it, but
just the church.
Just the church itself, which is amazing, and they're ever growing. Continuing. And I believe that church just got landmarked for historical.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think they just actually put a plaque up over there. The city of South Haven did.
Yes.
So congratulations to them on that. And then, of course, just I guess keep doing what you're doing, Betsy, because it's seems like it's working.
Absolutely.
You seem happy and excited and you're ready to get on that stuff. Well, look, I don't want to have to cut off this conversation because we could probably talk all day and do another show, which we probably will in the future about like part 2.
Yes, we love it.
And we'll do a story about I guess maybe the not so kid friendly version of what went on during those times in between 23 and 43, probably somewhere in that range.
The types of people I was locked up with, I can tell you.
Yeah, that's right. We could tell some stories.
Level 5 prison.
Oh my God, yeah. You told me some stories. I was like, man, we probably don't need to talk about that on the show. So, but we could just call it. Hey, don't turn the ears off if you don't want to hear some rated R stuff.
If you're not 13 or older, turn it.
Maybe 18 actually. There was some stuff. Yeah, maybe so. But however, it's amazing. Again, continued success with the books, the recovery, all that stuff, and obviously with school. Thank you for joining me today, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
You're welcome. All right, guys, remember to always look for Feed My Lambs, Roofworks, midsouth.com, and our other sponsors as we're building the 67 step-side C10 pickup that we're going to give away in October for Feed My Lambs. All the proceeds will benefit the program, every single penny. We're going to feed those kids. So support us if you can. I look forward to seeing y'all next time. Thanks for joining us today. Bye.